Dude, I was watching a reel or something of Snoop Dogg, and he's like, "How much does it take to get you on track?" He's like, "About 250,000. Get you about 16 bars." Then he's like, "Oh, you need me in the video? That'd be about another 250,000." And I'm there for an hour, so you get to film. Dang, Snoop! All right, welcome to the pod.
Welcome to the pod.
2 cents, Josh and Spence. Here we go. We're your hosts, Josh and Spence.
I'm Spence.
What's up, homie?
What's up, man?
What's up, dude?
What are we doing today? I hear we're doing a little mindset sode.
You're going to hate it. You're going to absolutely hate it.
I am going to hate it, but mindset sode is what it's all about.
You're going to hate it. So we did our last podcast. It was a mindset sode. And then, like, we very briefly just touched on, like, a super, I think, important topic, one that I have no experience with, quite frankly. And after, like, I was almost like mad at myself afterwards. And we talked, and I know it was by design, but like we totally just brushed over it.
Nope. As you said, that was by design.
So we talked. so in our last pod, we talked about how did you get into real estate? And you mentioned, your brother passed away in a tragic accident, and then we just kind of brushed over it. And then afterwards, I'm like, okay. We talked about your brother passed away, and then I just talk about myself for a half hour. Like that's not cool. But in all seriousness, because I've been thinking about this, because not only just that in itself, but you had mentioned like being an EMT, being a paramedic.
Paramedic, thank you.
Being a paramedic, like it's challenging to because it's easy for us to be in a super positive headspace all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
You wake up, you go, you read a positive book, you come in, you come into our sales office, you talk to a bunch of bubbly people high on coffee, and then you go help people buy and sell homes, you do funny stuff on the internet, whatever. So super easy for us to be in a good headspace and positive all the time. But then there's other people, right, that even without any certain tragedy, but there's certain people in law enforcement, people in emergency rescue, fire department, military, people that work in like halfway houses, recovery centers, all that type of stuff.
Yep.
Like there's a lot of nasty stuff out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought it would be an interesting conversation, especially just for me, because again, it's like easy for me to be positive, like I just get to bebop around here all day and whatever, but it's like, so I would love to get your perspective and just like, because too, you are and we were talking about this earlier today, like everything, like with our real estate group, like everything I love about it, a lot of it has to do with like you and the other agents, like attitude, right? Like super positive, super fun. Like it's like a frat house half the time back there,
Yep.
I mean, we're kicking butt and taking names, but we're having a good time, right? But how does somebody rebound and continue to stay positive when it's not easy, right? And you got, you know what I mean? So for myself, like got both parents, like my grandparents, my dad's 40 years older than me. And so his dad is like 40 years older than him. So all my grandparents passed away when I was very young, if I was even alive, right? So didn't deal with that. No, I've dealt with 0 loss my entire life. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so like no bearing on the subject. I have no experience there, and that'll change. Like, I mean, people are going to get sick. Like a lot of life is going to happen regardless. But I'd be really curious, like, to get your take on it. Like what do you do to get yourself in a good headspace? Like, how do you remain positive all the time, and how do you keep? How did you get on the trajectory you're on versus, because like I would imagine at some point there's like a decision point. You know what I mean? It's like I'm in a tough space and I can either go right or I can go left, right? And so I would love to not have this. I don't want this to be a bummer, and I don't want to make you uncomfortable or anything like that. But I did think it would be like something cool and helpful to talk about. Like again, like we spread joy and empower other people. So this would be how do you empower somebody that has had some nasty stuff happen?
Well, first of all, I have just knots in my stomach thinking about what we're about to talk about. So very out of my comfort zone, but we'll go for it here. like you mentioned, like EMS firefighters, like I have always just admired them because I literally couldn't do it. Like there are people who have been doing that for 30, 40 years. Like that's just insane to me because it's every day. Like something bad happens to someone. So like for me, it was like bad things happen so often. So I'm constantly thinking that that's just how the world is. And it sucked. So shout out to those people. They're way underpaid, way underappreciated. Yeah, it's a tough job, but, a little bit of backstory for me. So my brother Chase was 19 years old and he, was out with some friends of his, took a jet ski out and for like the first time in his whole life, for some reason didn't wear a life jacket. He somehow, fell off or nobody's really sure what happened, but his friends found just the jet ski floating. So then they called my parents and were like, we can't find Chase. So obviously just pure panic. Went out there and they looked for him all night. Couldn't find him. Said it's getting too dark. It's too unsafe for our people to be out here. So, okay. So then we went back home and that was probably the like worst night of my whole life. Just like not knowing if he's like in the woods and was able to like swim. But yeah, just not knowing. So, then the next day we go back there. There's a full like search party and everything. They've got drones flying around, doing a bunch of different stuff. People, divers in the water and everything. And a cool part that I'll never forget about this day is, cool isn't the right word, but as they were looking for him, there in the clouds, there was a cross in the sky, which was helpful. Yeah. But eventually they did find him. He was underwater and they recovered him and everything. Very, very thankful for all those people who recovered him. And we can talk about that a little bit later because that's something that has helped me with grief. But so that's a little bit of backstory. It's been, obviously it's been tough and everyone deals with grief a lot differently. So like, I don't know, I would always have people come up to me and be like, oh, I know what you're going through. So that was always tough. But, yeah, one thing that helped me was she was my girlfriend at the time, Mackenzie. Now she's my wife. She was, just getting to know Chase and like become close with him. And then this happened. So she was hurting too. But she was absolutely amazing. I couldn't have done it without her.
When was it? Like, so he was 9. How old were you? Was this?
I would have been 23, 24. Oh. My other younger brother, Cody, was 15 or 16, I think. So he is like also dealing with this in a much different way than me because he doesn't have a wife. He doesn't have a girlfriend yet. So yeah.
Saw him on the dance floor at your wedding. He will.
Oh yeah, he will. He's got some moves. Shout out Cody. Don't you worry about Cody. And then obviously my parents have dealt with it in a totally different way than I have. But yeah, it's hard to explain like how I've dealt with it. Obviously time is huge. Also talking with people about it. I love, like his friends will come up to me and be like, God, you look like Chase. Like we looked exactly like him. And then they'll tell me a funny story about it. And then they'll like apologize to me after. But like that is the absolute best. Like tell me a story about him. Like that's awesome.
Well, I feel like we've talked about that too. Like it's people are like somebody like me that like I didn't know. Like I came in after the fact, right? So it's like, can I ask about him? You know what I mean? Like you want, like,
well, and it's different for everyone,
right?
For sure. Yeah, it's different for everyone. Some people might not want to talk about it, which is cool. Right. Like, but me, like I have his name tattooed on my arm, like literally hoping that somebody will ask me about him. is that I get to brag about him. So I like telling good stories about him. That's been really helpful for me.
They talk about like, right, there's different stages of grief and like denial, and
for sure.
I don't know. And that's why I want to have this conversation.
Yep.
I've never read a book on it. I've never, but there's different stages or whatever. But like,
yeah, dude. First it was anger. Like this is like he doesn't wear a life jacket one time, and this happens. Like it's not fair. Just anger, and then still denial to this day. Like it still doesn't feel real. But now, obviously, I accepted it, and it's just a different life. But
what does that do to like? I don't know. I'm trying to think of like a good question because like I want to have this conversation, but again, like from our perspective, right? Like staying positive and being like joyful. Like how do you do that? How do you do that after something like that? Because there's any number of ways to handle something. And so what do you do?
There's definitely ways that we all do it. So like Chase was a big deer hunter. So when we go visit his grave, there's always deer that we can see in the woods, which is very cool. That's kind of big for my parents though. Like there's deer in the backyard and stuff. And they really like that. For me, I've got this one song that reminds me of him. So when I was still a paramedic, I had this patient who we couldn't intubate, and I like asked, I was like, help me out here, Chase, and stuff like that. Finally got the intubation so we could breathe for this person again. And then afterwards, I'm like thanking Chase in my head, like on my drive home, and I'm like, give me some kind of sign. And he gave me like, I got this sign of like, it was like a big flash of light in the sky, almost like lightning, but it was way brighter than lightning. I've never seen it before. So like stuff like that, I try to think about that. And that's obviously very helpful, but also like talking to people, talking about him. Me and my family have been to Compassionate Friends here in Fargo. I'm not sure if you've heard of them. They're awesome. It's basically, and it's something that I would have never done without like a nudge, but basically people just gather, and people who have like lost a close family member, and they're like, they just talk about it. Talk about like what they've been through, talk about them, whatever you want. So we went to this one a few weeks ago, and it was very difficult. Me and my brother didn't say a word for the start of it. We just kind of listened. And then we both said something, and it was like, just like relief off of my shoulders. Like I could physically feel it. It was wild. So that's very helpful. Groups like that are awesome. We need more of those, and it needs to be not like, I don't know why I was so against it, but I absolutely was like, no, I'm tough. I don't need to do that. So yeah, that and having a good cry. Yeah, dude. Like I'm always trying to be big and tough and cool for my wife Kenzie, because she's super cute.
Dude, you are big and tough.
But like
talking about that deer, Tat, like that's a deer with that big old arm.
Yeah. But like there's like some days are worse than others. Like his birthday is coming up, so like that'll be a really tough day for me. And she'll see me kind of like moping around, and she'll know, and she'll nicely let me know that like it's okay to cry, and then I'll just like let it rip. So that's helpful too. But yeah, it's a tough question to answer. It's tough to stay positive, and every day is different, but just trying to be grateful for what we do have, and grateful for the time that we did have with him. So yeah.
That's awesome. My only other question, what advice would you give to like say if somebody's listening that through something that's pretty fresh.
Yep.
What advice would you give to that person to help them get through?
And it's like, I've been asked before, and it's tough to give that answer. Like, do whatever you want to do, whatever makes you feel the best. And like, you'll get to know what makes you feel best. If it's laying on the couch and curling up in a ball, do that for a little bit. But eventually, like, talk to people about it. It's not anything to be ashamed of. Like, just talk to people. I've said it a million times, I'm so lucky to have Kenzie where I can talk to her. But like, my brother Cody, he doesn't have someone like that. So I know, like, him talking at this Compassionate Friends thing was super helpful for him. My parents have had a ton of family friends, ton of people reach out and offer their help and all that kind of stuff. And I know it's helpful for them to talk to people who have been in a similar situation, who have been through something like that. So yeah, another thing, like, we so like I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but like the rescue squad that found him. So like, this made us feel obviously really good, just to give back to them. So like, we had my old coworkers at Ultra Ambulance actually set up a GoFundMe page for Chase's funeral. Well, we instead like took that money and donated it to the rescue squad in Grand Forks, and then we put in there's like a memorial stone out in front of their building, and we got like 3 flagpoles put in. Super cool. So doing stuff like that is really cool. So that, like, he's not forgotten. Like, permanent stones, we plant, like, his high school is planting a tree for him, like, all that kind of stuff, where it's like, okay, like, he'll never be forgotten. And yeah, it's really cool. It's another way to be positive. So
100%. Well, I appreciate you sharing that with everybody. I think, again, like, when it comes to some stuff like this, I just want to spread joy and empower other people. And like, that's not always, high fives and stuff like that. Like, this is a very real conversation.
Yep. And it's like, everyone will go through it. Everyone will lose someone. So like, there's nothing that anyone can tell you that will make it not suck. Like, it's always going to suck no matter what. But just know that you are not the only person who has been through that or is going through that currently. So like, reach out to people, lock arms with them and go through it together. So,
well, I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah,
with us.
Good mindset. So tough one, but a little sad. So
sad. So sad. So inaugural sad. So
inaugural sad. So
first and only.
Mindset sad. So
mindset sad. So no, truly, thank you for sharing. That took a lot of courage to do that, and hopefully somebody out there finds it helpful. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah, man. Watch for deer.
Next episode will be much more fun. All right.